What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the NFL Sunday Roundup Show presented by BettingPros. I am your host, Russell Brown. You guys can find me on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. We are back after some technical difficulties last week where we could not do the Week 4 recap show and the Week 5 look ahead spot. So we scrapped that episode and we are now hitting here at Week 5. We're going to give you a recap. We're going to look ahead to Week 6. A big day today on NFL Sunday. Favorites were 9-2 on Sunday in Week 5. And the only teams that were underdogs that won were teams that were 5.5 point favorites. So under or 5.5 point underdogs. Underdogs of 5.5 points or more were 2-0 today. They're 19-4-1 on the year. They're 13-11 straight up. It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow with the 5.5 point spread between the Saints and the Chiefs. We will talk about Monday Night Football with my best Monday Night Football bets. I got 3 of them for you today, but let's jump into the NFL Week 5 recap. Not going to hit on every single game. Like I said, favorites were 9-2 on Sunday. We saw Baltimore, Jacksonville, Miami, Washington, Houston, Chicago, Denver, Minnesota, and Green Bay all win and all cover the spread in their games. Whether it was 2.5, 1.5, maybe it was a pick 'em. They all covered the spread in their game. Like I said, the dogs that did not, or the dogs that did cover, were Arizona and the Giants. But the team that really stood out was Sunday morning in London. The Minnesota Vikings win 23-17 to the New York Jets. They are now 5-0 against the spread. They're 5-0 straight up. That defense is legit. This is a Minnesota Vikings football team right now. They beat the Texans 2 weeks ago, 34-17. They beat the Packers last week, 31-29. That defense can create pressure. They force turnovers. They're just a good, well-rounded football team, and they're playing like one of the best football teams in the NFL right now. Last broadcast, one of the CBS broadcasters, one of the announcers said that Darnold for MVP is something that is a real possibility. And last week he was plus 1,300 odds. I have not checked for today, but that's on DraftKings. The way he's playing, it's maybe worth sprinkling a couple of bucks on it. It's probably unlikely, so maybe you shouldn't listen to me. But I think it's one of those things where you look at it, he's got great rapport with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. They're able to run the football with Aaron Jones. TJ Hawkinson is now in the practice window. So I think there's a lot of interesting things happening in Minnesota, but it all starts up front with them and their defense. I would definitely pick with the Vikings week in and week out. This is a team, though, they are on a bye week. Next week buys are the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings. So you can't pick the Vikings next week, but definitely keep them on your tickets moving forward. One team you might want to keep off of your ticket is the Carolina Panthers. I mean, we knew this team was bad, but they were going to be this bad. 1-4 against the spread. They've got a 1-4 record. They lost today. And this is a football team that is 4-1 to the over. So they play the Falcons next week. The total is already set at 48 points. And spread is 4.5. We'll talk about that in the head spot, but the Panthers, not a very good football team right now, 1-4 against the spread. I would certainly bet the over. 48 is quite a bit against Atlanta because Carolina is going to be able to score that much. But yeah, it's a bad thing going on right now with that football team. In general, one player prop I have for you, Derrick Henry is probably the guy that you might want to really hone in on when you're looking at rushing props on a weekly basis. Through 5 games, 572 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. He's had long runs in the last 4 games of 29 yards, 29 yards, 87 yards, and 51 yards. So whenever you can look at maybe him to score a touchdown at any point in time and maybe take his rushing attempt, whatever they, maybe it's 15.5 yards, maybe it's 18.5 yards, maybe it's 12.5, whatever it is, take the over on that. It seems like he's hitting that week in and week out. And again, those were his long runs of 29 87, 51 for the day. Him hitting a 10, 11, 12-yard carry happen multiple times in a game. So Derrick Henry, bet him any chance that I can get right now because he is just looking phenomenal. And to be completely honest with you, the Ravens offense, they put up 41 points today against the Bengals. And this is a Baltimore team that is now 4-1 to the over this season. So their defense has given up some points. It shows today with the 38 points that they gave up. I think they're just an intriguing team to bet because of how high powered their offense is. And they play the Commanders next week. The total's 52. So I think there's some value there with Derrick Henry. Speaking of the Commanders, don't look now, but they might be for real. That's 3 convincing wins in a row for them. They're 4-1 on the season. They've got a tough matchup, like I said, against Baltimore next week. But they've got Carolina and Chicago following that. So through kind of the halfway point on the year, they could be 6-2. Jaden Daniels playing extremely well. He was 47 of 53 in his last 2 games going into today. He finished 14 of 27. So it's one of those things where it's not necessarily what you wanted to see today, but his mobility is legit. He is certainly the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But the player you might want to really hone in on for their offense is Terry McLaurin right now. I would take almost every single player prop known to man for him. He's had 32 targets in his last 4 games with 21 receptions for 286 yards and 2 touchdowns. It'll be interesting what his number is set at against Baltimore and what should be a high-scoring game and potentially them chasing points. So I would look at the Commanders. Again, spreads at +6.5. We'll talk about it in week 6. Look ahead. One last thing, a team that you might want to bet against consistently is the New England Patriots. They were 10-point dogs to the 49ers 2 weeks ago. Weren't even close to that number. They lost to Miami today, 15-10. They're 1-3-1 against the spread this season. I think they might have to make a move at quarterback, but their offensive line is so banged up. They lost their left tackle. They lost their starting center. Their starting center is gone for this season. So when you look at this is a team right now. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have an offensive line. They don't really have an identity. They play the Texans next week. The spread is already 7 points. I think the Texans can cover that number. So I would definitely I would probably jump on Houston right now before that number probably gets up to 9, 8.5 or 9. So yeah, I mean, that's just a team right now that is just really bad. Some of the best over teams, the best under teams right now. Looking at the over, there are 5 teams that are 4-1 to the over right now. Seattle, Washington, Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Carolina. New Orleans is 3-1. Dallas is 3-1. We're waiting for Dallas to play right now. It's Sunday night here, about 9:30 Eastern time. They've got a delay in Pittsburgh due to weather. But New Orleans, they play tomorrow against the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's kind of interesting to see. But teams that are really bad to the over, the Chargers are 0-4. They are on a bye this week. Houston is 1-4. The Giants are 1-4. Miami is 1-4. Minnesota is 1-4. So these are teams that you might want to bet the under on. New England's 2-3 to that. So we talk Houston, we talk Patriots. The total in their game is 38.5. The under might be something worth looking at, and maybe even taking them in a teaser, taking them 6-point teaser, maybe making it under 45 points. I feel like that might be very doable, but I could see the Texans probably scoring 31 plus points themselves. So I don't know if I want to necessarily touch that, but we can look ahead here to NFL Week 6. Before I do that, we have to talk about the Betting Pros Discord chat. You guys have probably seen it many times on bettingpros.com. If you are looking to up your game in sports betting, you can join our exclusive sports betting Discord community at bettingpros.com/chat. Not only can you connect with expert handicappers who provide free picks for NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL, player props, live betting, so much more. I mean, the NBA's starting up here. They've got preseason going on. The NHL's starting in a couple of days. There's so much here to go that you can participate in weekly and daily community picks, cast your vote, see how your picks stack up against the expert, and track your success. by going to bettingpros.com/chat. So don't wait around. Join the Betting Pros Discord as soon as you can. But let's look at week 6 here. One thing that's really standing out, we talked kind of overs and unders there in that last segment. Cincinnati Giants over under 48 points. The over is -110. I'm really leaning towards the over here, simply because the Bengals are 4-1 to that over. The Giants are 1-4 to the over. The spread of 3.5, I think, is really interesting for a Giants team that is coming off of a win, a Bengals team that has so much star power on offense, but they're also, they're coming off of a very tough loss to the Ravens today. The Giants get Malik Neighbors back in this matchup. Just leaning towards the over because I think it could be a 27-24 type of game. I really think this is one of those types of games. And again, I mentioned teasers previously about Houston and New England. Maybe you take them on the under of, like, let's say 45. You take Giants and Cincinnati at like an over of 42. I think that's something that you could very much do. Bring those points down a little bit. I love a good teaser. I'm waiting for one to potentially cash tonight. I got the Cowboys at +10. So we'll see how that goes. The other game I'm going to be looking at is Atlanta -4.5. It's -110. They go to Carolina. We've talked about the Panthers. They're 1-4 against the spread. They're not very good. The Panthers might be turning back to Bryce Young after Andy Dalton got banged up today. We'll see what happens. The Falcons, though, they came into Thursday night. They're clicking. They're getting a couple of days rest here. This offense, though, with Drake London, Darnell Mooney, we're even seeing Ray McLeod get involved, Kyle Pitts. Kirk Cousins is really figuring things out right now with this Atlanta offense. So I think I look at this and say, I'm going to take 4.5 before it gets up to 5.5, maybe 6, especially once injury reports come out and those types of things. I think Atlanta has so much potential in this matchup, so I would lean towards them. The next game, Steelers -3 at -110 right now on DraftKings. I know they have not played yet. We've got to see what happens with Justin Fields and this offense and ultimately everything, but they're going to Las Vegas. The Steelers are 3-1 against the spread. They're the second best team against the spread since 2021. The only team that's better than them is Detroit against the spread. If you look at the Raiders right now, outside of Max Crosby, this team is in like absolute shambles. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have Devontae Adams. He's basically given them the peace sign, like he wants out. He's got a hamstring injury. Don't know if he's going to play for them ever again this season. We really don't know. This game might be low scoring, but I think the Steelers can easily cover the 3 points on the road. So I would jump at that. Maybe you buy it down a half a point, get it to -2.5, whatever you want to do. But that's really what I'm looking for next week. And then just lastly, big road dogs. As I mentioned, 5.5 point underdogs were 2-0 today. They were 3-2-1 in week 4, 5-1 in week 3, and 6-0 in week 2. Again, on the season, they're 19-4-1. We've got 2 big road dogs that I think could potentially cover the number. Washington 6.5 at Baltimore, Cleveland +9.5 at Philly. Philly is that good. Cleveland, I don't think is that much better, but they could potentially come in and cover that 9.5. That's a big number for Philly to try to cover, especially with how up and down they've been on both sides of the football. So big road dogs, pay attention to for next week. Pay attention to injury reports. See what's going on with A.J. Brown there in Philly, Devontae Smith coming back from a concussion. Maybe the total is something that you're interested in as well for week 6 in the NFL between Cleveland and Philly. But let's talk about Monday night. Let's take a look at my best Monday night football bets for the New Orleans Saints and Kansas City Chiefs. You guys can build your own same game parlay with our tool here, Pros. All you have to do is go to bettingpros.com/parlay. So if you're looking to build your own same game parlay, check it out on that parlay builder. You can combine multiple bets within a single NFL game, leveraging insights like correlated bet recommendations, EV ratings, cover probability, and perfect your betting strategy by analyzing overall correlation projections. And stay ahead by following the latest same game parlays placed by fellow bettors. Again, you can check it out over at bettingpros.com/parlay or on the Betting Pros sports betting app for absolutely free. So let's look at Monday night. Like I said, New Orleans, not New England, New Orleans Saints at Kansas City. I like this plus 5.5 at minus 108. I don't think the Chiefs are some world beater of a team that we've seen in previous years. I think the Saints have a relatively good offense. The Saints are 3-1 against the spread this season. We know the Rashee Rice injury will make this offense somewhat limited. They might struggle a little bit to move the football. They don't have Isaiah Pacheco. I know they've got Kareem Hunt. You might be able to jump on some Kareem Hunt prop bets if you feel like it. But I just feel like this one's kind of a no-brainer at 5.5. It should be a relatively close game. I don't need the Saints to win. I'm fine with a 5-point loss. I'm fine with a 4-point loss. Whatever it is, just within 5.5. So I think this is a great spread for you as your first bet, first leg of a parlay. Next up, Pat Mahomes, 1.5 passing touchdowns. Look, plus money. I'm not going to take a long shot touchdown score. I put a lot of trust in Pat Mahomes every single week. I mean, we're talking 2 passing touchdowns. He still has Travis Kelce. He's got Xavier Worthy. He's got that obvious rapport with Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, Noah Gray, Samaje Perine, Carson Steele. I mean, he'll make it work. And this was a thing a few years ago before they started changing his passing touchdown total at 2.5. Almost every single week I was betting Pat Mahomes over 1.5 touchdowns. He went on to throw, for 40, 45 passing touchdowns that season. I don't think he's going to necessarily do that this season, but we're still talking about a quarterback that's going to throw it 30 to 40 times a game, if not more. So I like the chances here for Mahomes to get 2 touchdowns passing for tomorrow. The last leg or last bet, if you want to bet these straight up, you want to parlay them, whatever, if you them, as you can see, it can be plus 675 odds. You might be able to get a profit boost. DraftKings as well. But Xavier Worthy has not hit his total this year of over 3.5 receptions. It might not be a weekly thing for him. It's probably been more so like 1.5, 2 receptions. But now that he's kind of the guy as far as that number one receiver, they moved his line up to 3.5 receptions. I just feel like with not that much at the wide receiver position there, he can hit this with 4 or 5 receptions easily. I think a few designed short screens to him, a wide receiver screen, a drag, a cross, or whatever. Plus, he's got that speed to win things vertically. So I like Xavier Worthy in this spot for over 3.5 receptions, Pat Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and the Saints to plus 5.5. So that's Monday Night Football. I wish you guys all the best. And that's going to do it for me here on the Betting Pros Sunday Roundup Show. Like I said, you guys can find me on Twitter or X at Russ NFL Draft. You, of course, can join the Betting Pros community on our Discord chat with bettingpros.com/chat. Of course, you can do the same game parlay builder. You can do all of it. And of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All of this is for absolutely free. So I don't know what you're waiting for. If you're trying to make more money, you need to join us here at Betting Pros. I'll be back next week for another NFL Sunday Roundup show. We'll be looking into week 7. But for now, you guys enjoy the rest of week 5 and best of luck next week in week 6. We'll be back next week. I'm Russ Brown. This is the NFL Sunday Roundup show right here on Betting Pros.